All right, let's dive right in. Today we're taking a deep look at the Gospel of John, one of the most foundational texts in all of Christianity. But we're going to look at some of its most famous verses through a lens that, well, it might just change how you see them. Let's start with a line I'm sure you've heard before. I and the Father are one. For centuries, this single line has been an absolute cornerstone of theology. It's often held up as the definitive, no doubt about it, statement of Jesus' divinity, a claim to be one and the same with God the Father. Seems pretty straightforward, right? Well, what if it's not so clear? What if the original language, the grammar, and the cultural context of the time actually point to something different, something just as profound, but different? That's the puzzle we're going to unpack today, looking at scholarship that re-examines these ancient words. Now, to even begin to solve this puzzle, we have to understand a concept that was just common knowledge back then. It's an ancient Jewish legal principle that, according to the source material, is the real key to unlocking these famous verses. It's called the Shaliach principle. And the core idea is simple but really powerful. A man's agent is like himself. What this meant was that an appointed representative, a Shaliach, could speak and act with the full authority of the person who sent them. But here's the crucial part. It's all about authority and function, not about sharing the same essential being or identity. So let's break that down, because this is important. First, the agent fully represents the sender. Whatever they do, it's as if the sender did it. Second, they remain completely distinct. They don't become the person they represent. And third, the agent is subordinate. All their power, all their authority comes directly from the one who sent them. You know, a great way to think about it is like a modern ambassador. When an ambassador speaks, they are speaking for their nation with full authority. Their words literally carry the weight of their country. But, of course, nobody thinks the ambassador is the country, right? They're a representative, an agent. Keep that idea in your head. Okay, so let's take this agency lens and apply it to our first big case study, the incredible opening of John's Gospel. This contains one of the most debated verses in the entire Bible. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with the God, and the Word was God. Man, what a line. But it's that last part, and the Word was God. That's where all the action is. In the Greek, it reads, Kai theos ein ho logos. And how we translate that little phrase changes, well, pretty much everything. So you've basically got two main options here. Does it mean identity? That the Word was literally the God that was just mentioned? Or does it describe equality, meaning the Word was divine in its nature? This isn't just a matter of opinion, either. It actually comes down to a fine point of Greek grammar. Okay, stick with me because this grammar stuff is actually fascinating. In the original Greek, the word has the definite article, the, which makes it the subject of the sentence. But the word God right before it, theos, does not have an article. And in this kind of sentence structure, a noun without an article like that usually describes the quality of the subject. It's not telling us who the word was, but what kind of thing the word was. And hey, this isn't some fringe idea. The source points out that leading Greek grammarians, including some very prominent Trinitarian scholars like Daniel Wallace, argue really forcefully that the grammar itself points to this qualitative interpretation. So what does qualitative actually mean here? It means the word shared the very nature, the very essence of God. One scholar put it perfectly. What God was, the word was. This is an incredibly high view for sure. It's saying the word has a divine nature. But it stops just short of saying the word is the God he was just described as being with. See the distinction? And the evidence for this agency idea just keeps coming. Check out what it says just 2 verses later. Notice that key word, all things came into being through him. That little Greek word, dia, is the classic textbook language of mediated agency. You see it all over the New Testament when it talks about the Son's role. The structure is crystal clear. God the Father is the ultimate source, the principle, who creates everything through his agent, the Word. This is the Shaliach principle in action right there in the text. Okay, so let's shift gears and go back to that verse we started with. I and the Father are one. Now that we have this framework of agency, let's look at it again with that same kind of grammatical and contextual care. This is so cool. In Greek, there are different words for one. If John wanted to say Jesus and the Father were one being or one person, he almost certainly would have used the masculine form, heis, but he doesn't. He uses the neuter form, hen,
which means one thing. It's typically used to show a unity of purpose, of will, of mission.
And the best part? We don't even have to guess what John means by this. Just a few chapters later, Jesus is praying for his followers, and he says he wants them to be one, and, yup, he uses the exact same neuter word, hen, just as we are one.
And that just lays out a huge question, doesn't it? If Jesus uses the very same word to describe his unity with the Father and the unity he wants for his disciples, does that mean he wants his disciples to become part of God's essential being too? The source argues, well, clearly not. The unity he's talking about is one of purpose and mission.
And what's more, when he gets challenged on this, Jesus' own defense in the story is literally an agency argument. He quotes a psalm where human judges, acting as God's agents of justice on earth, are called gods. His point is basically, hey, if Scripture can call human representatives gods, why is it blasphemy for God's ultimate agent, his own Son, to do the same?
So when you start to put all these pieces together, the legal background of the Shaliach, the grammar of John 1, the context of John 10, a really consistent picture starts to emerge from the source material, a picture of divinity based on agency. Now, let's be absolutely clear. This is still an incredibly high view of Jesus. It affirms he's the pre-existent Word, he is divine in his very nature, he is the agent of all creation, and he is perfectly one with the Father in will and mission. This isn't about lowering Jesus' status at all. It's about a different understanding of it, a Christology of the supreme agent.
And this really shows the two models side by side. You have the later Nicene model, which talks about divinity in terms of one shared essence among co-equal persons. And then you have this agency model, which the source argues is what you find in John, one supreme God acting through his supreme agent, the Son. So the bottom line from the source material is this. All of John's powerful, exalted language about Jesus fits perfectly within that first-century Jewish world of the divine agent, the Shaliach. It doesn't necessarily require the specific metaphysical leap that was developed hundreds of years later in the Nicene Creed. And that kind of leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? It just goes to show how profoundly our understanding can shift when we work to ground these ancient texts in their own language and culture. It really makes you wonder, what else might we be missing by reading our modern ideas back into the past?